Hey, wow, there's some stuff happening there. Any viewers? Not really. Welcome to the Vinyl Garage. There's lots of stuff spinning around telling you that it's the Vinyl Garage. There's my mic level here. There it is. Just walk over here a little bit. Because, that's what's going on. It's Talking About. It's Thursday night. It's time for your weekly or bi-weekly episode of Talking About. I am Angus James. You're in the Vinyl Garage. And this week we're continuing my discussion. Well, I did episode 2 was supposed to be my experience live streaming so far, plus an entire walkthrough of my studio, but I never actually got to that walkthrough part. So I decided to actually do that tonight after I sort of canceled what was supposed to be tonight, which we were going to have movie guy Bry on again and talk about movies, which we love to do here. We were going to have a couple of other guests, and we were going to talk about strange musical performances in movies. This was my idea. And pseudo musicals. I've got a whole list of weird musical moments from movies. But I other than the initial making of the list and conceiving of the idea, I never put any effort into it over the past couple of weeks. So I decided to postpone that to next week. So we're actually going to have 2 weeks in a row of Talking About, and we'll see if we can keep that weekly schedule going. I don't know. Saturday nights as well. You can catch me at 9 p.m. Live, mostly spinning like house music. That's what I've been into. But we're going to probably go back to the sort of Freestyle Fridays format. God damn, it's hot in here right now. I'm just realizing that now. There's a lot of computers revving around me. I'm going to talk all about that. And so, well, but since you're here, one Twitch viewer, it's time for the Talking About theme song. Hold on. I'm coming back. I didn't check to see if this was in tune, so let's just... I also didn't practice this since 2 weeks ago. Uh-oh. I'll do my best here. I am good at tuning instruments, so... not a problem here. Talking about our feelings and stuff. Talking about how we don't talk enough. Everyone's talking and... oh, I forget. Nobody shout. That's what we're talking about. Talking about. All right. Now that's the theme song. Welcome, Von Fackenheim. Welcome to the Vinyl Garage. This is Talking About, my podcast, every second Thursday, except it's going to be every Thursday eventually. Tonight we're talking about gear. I don't have any titles. That kind of sucks. Maybe we can put that in. I don't know. Wow, where to start? We should start by getting some viewers up in this place. I don't know. Let me get my chair. I'm going to have my chair standing by. Actually, I'm going to stand for a while because I've got lots of stuff to do and talk about. And, thanks for getting in that chat, Von Fackenheim. So, wow. I am very persistent when it comes to figuring out computers and technology, especially when it's related to audio, sometimes video, tuning out my surround sound system at home, something I used to like to do a lot. I don't really have a surround sound system anymore, but I may. We just got a projector in the garage as part of our quest. My buddy Adam has joined forces with me to make my Saturday night electronic music streams extra special by having extra visuals. So we got another Windows computer. We're using a program called FBLive, which is in beta, and it's really cool. It's really amazing. I was using a sort of a similar like 3D graphics program already to pipe some cool graphics in, and that one's like 15 years old. It's called Resolume Avenue 3. Resolume Arena is still around, but we've chosen FBLive. It is it's open source, which is great. and it's in beta, but it's really, really good. It's also fully functional broadcasting software, although we are using OBS to broadcast tonight. What are you saying? Tell me about your gear. I've never streamed anything before, but I'm familiar with professional internet streaming. Well, that's cool. And I'm familiar a lot with like professional audio stuff and DJing. But I've always had a knack for figuring stuff out. And yeah, I just started to talk about how I was. OBS is great. OBS is another open source. The name says it all. Open broadcasting software. It's broadcasting software. It also records videos, and it's open source. And FBLive does exactly those same things. It's a little bit more simplified when it comes to the settings of streaming and recording, I think. But it does 3D effects, and OBS does not do that at all. So there may be some plugins and stuff for OBS. So they actually work in conjunction together very well. You can run them on the same machine and pipe one into the other. We're not actually doing that. We're running them separate machines. And what you're looking at right now is just obviously a single camera with OBS. I'm going to try and show off some camera angles and some effects tonight and explain how I'm doing them. And hopefully that's interesting to all the millions of people that are tuning in. We are broadcasting at 20 frames per second right now because my computer can only handle that with all the stuff that it has to render. Like right now, it's just rendering one webcam. So how hard could that be? But I get going and I end up giving it too much. This is the MacBook that I'm using to stream is over 10 years old, and the other one I use to DJ is a few years even older than that. And yeah, I'm going to get into explaining a little bit more about that. But yeah, I've always been quite persistent with figuring stuff out, and these past few years is 3D Transform. Yeah, that's probably a plugin. It's most likely a plugin. I use Move Transition. I guess that's not really the same thing at all, but it's a transition plugin so that when I change scenes like this, the windows actually move off to the side instead of just fading or crossfading or whatever. Cool, but I'll have a look at that about that 3D Transform plugin. I'm a little hesitant to install plugins on this computer because this is part of what I've been dealing with. So let me get into trying to explain. I am constantly tinkering with the setup, and I'm also using some old computers, and I've always been very persistent about figuring things out. One of the things that has pained me a lot is using the iPhone as a camera. So I have Apple computers. I didn't actually have an iPhone. I've had a few iPads, but when I started using OBS, I think I read that and I started live streaming on Twitch and stuff. I think I read somewhere that you could easily, if you had an Apple computer, you could easily plug in an iPhone and then use it as a camera. Well, iPhones have really good cameras, as most smartphones do. You can do this with Android phones as well, and you can also do it with Windows, but the connection between the iDevices and the MacBooks apparently makes it really easy. So you used to have to install a plugin to OBS to do this, but then a few versions later, you didn't have to install that plugin anymore. There is one way to do it that actually when you're adding a source, they have a source, and this was in newer versions of OBS, called iOS Camera, and it's actually a source on its own, because usually whenever you're importing any other video source, opening any other video source in OBS, you use import video source or whatever it is. But in this case, you actually choose iOS Camera. It's its own special source. But with that one, you actually have to install that app on iOS. And now, it's probably not that expensive. I didn't have any Apple money loaded this time, so I didn't try that out. I might have, because I ended up buying a piece of software recently that has made this work better. But back to the beginning of the story. Hey, we got someone watching on Facebook. Welcome on Facebook. Send me likes and give me likes and comments, and get on over to the Twitch where you can join in the chat. We're talking about gear tonight, all of my gear, and there's so much gear in here in the Vinyl Garage. Yeah, so iOS, iPads and iPhones as cameras. when so you got the iOS camera app. So what bugged me is when I tried it out again recently, they trick you into thinking that you can use it for free, and you kind of can, but there's all these ads all over the screen and shit, and it's like completely useless. So what bugs me about that is like if they just told you that straight up, which in many cases you do on the App Store, they'll tell you like, you know, the trial has crap all over the screen, so it's really not going to work for anything. I like a unlimited 30-day trial. That's what I prefer, so that you can use a piece of software and actually see whether it's going to work for you. But in this case, so I installed the iOS camera app again on this iPhone. I got an iPhone. That was part of the story. I got an iPhone from someone that wasn't using it anymore, and so I just use it as a camera, being an Android person myself and an Apple person. I don't know. So I tried that iOS app again, and it's like it's so annoying because it's like, oh yeah, free trial. Okay. So you try to use it, but there's like crap all over the screen. You can't use it. Like, oh, you want to buy it? No, I don't want to buy it. You piss me off again. But that's not even, the funny thing is that iPhones are supposed to natively work with OBS. They have it built in. So you don't even have to select iOS camera as a camera source. Oh, you have a surplus iPhone 7? If you need another one, I would love it. That'd be great. Mail it to me. I'll send you my address in a private message sometime. The iOS camera source, you don't even really have to use that, because either with the plugin installed or in newer versions of OBS, the weird thing is now in the newest version, I think you have to install the plugin again. But nonetheless, they're supposed to just work natively. So you choose a video source like normal in OBS, and then you just choose like your iPhone from the list, and it just comes up as a camera, and it just works, right? So I've had this work before, and then it just magically stops working after a while. And what happens is the camera goes out of sync, and it starts getting further and further behind the other cameras. And you can tell this because when you flip to it, you move, and then nothing happens for several seconds, and you're looking. And then not only does it fall out of sync, it starts going all distorted and garbled and all screwed up. Now, I've looked up this problem for like years now, and I've never found anyone with exactly the same problem as that. And so then one day it would just start working again, and then it wouldn't work. So what I figured out was if I ran it through QuickTime, because OBS, you can capture a window. So if you open QuickTime on your MacBook, connect to your iPhone with a USB cable, and then sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. Right. You open the camera. You can give it DJ Forces. Well, I might meet up with DJ Forces. I live in Belleville now, but if we're visiting Toronto, I will visit James in the beaches there. So when you connect the iPhone, you open it as a video, as a camera in QuickTime, and then you just sort of minimize QuickTime. You can't actually minimize. You have to like shove it in the corner. And then you capture the QuickTime window. So I've been doing that for a long time, but you have to deal with some delay. And then, so then it started working again natively. So I just used it for that. Recently, I had to go back to QuickTime. Cool, Von Falkenheim. Yeah, man, that's amazing. Talk to James about that, because if you give him the phone, I will give it to you. And like, that's amazing. If you really aren't using that anymore, I will totally mess around with it. Maybe it'll be easier on me than this, because I have a iPhone 5S, and I'm wondering if maybe that's a source of some of the problems. But here's the thing. It works as a camera perfectly. I'm using it currently right now because I found a new solution. It's just such a long story and kind of a boring story. Trying to finish it up with that. Damn, it's hot in here. There's a lot of computers going. But so running through QuickTime. So recently, I've been realizing that I'm dropping a lot of frames in my stream, and I didn't know this. It's probably been happening for years, and it would explain why I've always had audio-video synchronization problems. I'm pretty good at knowing about how to compensate for delay and how to sync stuff up, and I understand a lot of that with OBS, but I was having some problems that I could not fix. And I finally realized that it was because my computer basically couldn't render all this stuff that I was throwing at it. And that's one of the reasons why I've lowered the frame rate to 20 frames per second for a while, to see if that helps. And I've messed around with the settings for hours and hours and hours. One of the other things that was causing a huge problem is running QuickTime in the background. And I finally realized that when I turned off QuickTime, the whatever CPU usage went way down, and all the, do you buffer your stream? I don't think so, but I looked at that. I saw that option the other day. See, I'm having problems. All my problems are with rendering, not encoding. I'm not having any encoding problems. I'm not having any network problems. So on the other end, my streams are almost always perfect. The problem is that my computer can't render, and I believe it's just basically because it's okay. So that's also to do with the fact that my computer is a 2011 MacBook with the failed AMD graphics chip. All 2011 MacBooks had a faulty chip in them, so I have that chip bypassed. So it has to do all the rendering and encoding with either the internal graphics card or just with software. So this is a huge limitation, and I think I've finally understood how this limitation is affecting my recordings and my streams. It doesn't seem like it's very problematic from the other side when people are watching it, but the problem is that my audio and video goes out of sync a lot of times. Now, when I'm DJing, you can't really notice this, but when I look back at the recordings, I see this, and usually you should be able to fix this by offsetting your audio. Like if your cameras are coming in later because they're being processed or whatever, you can delay your audio to compensate for it. But every time I would delay it and think that I had it, it would change. And that really irked me. And eventually I just gave up. And so recently I think I've realized that this is all just because of this rendering issue. So what I'm trying to do is turn down some settings a little bit and figure out where the problems lie. I like to run Zoom for my podcast. It's another reason why I canceled the podcast, the interview style podcast this week, because I've been running Zoom on the same computer. And although it can do it with much strain, you can tell it's straining because certain things happen, and it does it. But again, it just completely cannot keep up with the amount of frames. It's pumping out, like right now, actually, I'm watching it, and it's barely making 20 frames per second. And this is now with like everything turned off. So yeah. So also the thing about plugging here's more. There's so much about using this iPhone as a camera. It's just been like a saga that's gone on for the past couple of years of my life, of getting it to work and then it stops working. And I'm about to be talking about it for half an hour, and I'll try to finish it up here. But the other thing about the iPhone as a camera is you're running it wired through USB. So there's a length limit to USB. Some people say it's 17 feet. Now you can use a powered hub, but here's the thing about that. So when I'm running the lightning cable from the iPhone to the computer, or to the hub or whatever, it wants to charge, right? But the problem is when you're using it as a camera, it drains the battery faster than it can charge on half an amp. And that's all you're going to get if you plug in your iPhone to a regular USB port on any computer or into a hub. You're only going to get a half an amp, and that is not enough to charge it fast enough. And so yeah, if I move quickly, well, yeah, 20 frames per second. But yeah, totally. I don't do a lot of movement, which is why I'm lucky I can reduce the frame rate. I'm glad you understand that. The turntables look okay too when they're spinning. They're all right. So I have that. I was able to do that, and I was happy that stabilized things quite well, reducing the frame rate. It made my computer happy. So that's a problem that I dealt with. Is extending USB is easy with a powered hub. You can extend it much past 17 feet as long as you have a good powered hub. But the phone wouldn't charge fast enough, and sometimes it wouldn't even charge at all. I finally realized after almost 2 years, when I moved in here, actually, yeah, a little blurry effect. I have some cheap cameras going in here, and we've been sort of playing around with that, using the shittiness of them to sort of like put effects on them and make them look neat, and then some of the cameras look better. The iPhone camera looks so good. You don't have to correct the color. Everything looks great. It catches all of the my lives here. I'm going to turn this off because that also kills it. Yeah, but it catches my. Oh, what happened to my Polypop? Oh yeah, I turned it off. It just looks great. The iPhone looks great. I know I'm not extremely well lit right now, but the iPhone is pretty far away. So I finally realized that there is a port on every Apple computer that will provide an extra half an amp to iDevices if you plug it into it. So this made my USB situation even more complicated because, like I'm going to talk about later, probably as I get into this, I had to deal a lot with I have many different cameras and video devices connected to this one computer, and they don't all get along. And the easiest way to get them to get along is put them on different USB buses. Now, the MacBook only has 2 USB buses. It has 3 ports, so 2 of those ports are on the same bus. So you can split stuff up by putting it on a different port. One of the 2 ports that are on the one bus is the one that will provide more power to the iPhone. So I finally found the right cable from Giant Tiger, a really long charging cable, plus another one that I bought from the dollar store that's a USB 2 compliant extender. And I was able to extend the iPhone, which is up there on a mount. The cable can't come straight in, right? It has to go off to the side. Otherwise, it's in the shot. So go off to the side and then come down. And I finally found a way. So I got it to work. And since I've been here, it worked natively, right? But then it stopped working again. And it was such a drag. So the thing about having it connected in that fashion is not only do you have to have the cable, be able to run the cable, and there is a length on USB, but if you want the phone to charge, you can't use a hub. You have to plug it directly in. That basically limits your cable length to somewhere around 17 feet. Mine was probably 20 feet. I'm surprised that it worked. And every time it stopped working, USB 2 probably since circa 2011. Since it stopped working, I thought again, I'm like, maybe it's just a length thing. Maybe it's just I can't have the cable that long. But I would troubleshoot it with the official Apple cable, like the one that's only a few inches long, plugged directly into the MacBook, and I would troubleshoot the iPhone camera, and it would still fuck up even when it was on its short cable. So I'm like, that's not it. Finally, the other day, I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm done with trying to I can't run QuickTime. I'm done with this. So I started looking into options to get the camera to run wirelessly. And like I said, you can use, well, there's a few different things that you can buy. I settled on Air Server. It's like an official, thicker cables can reduce impedance and might help you cheat the max distance. Yeah, it does. It does. You got to get really hefty cables, but I'm done with trying to cheat the max distance. I'm done with cables and charging and everything. I got Air Server, and I can use the app that I was already using, because then you just have to have an app on the phone that's running that will provide a clean image. Like, you can't use the camera app because it has the little take a picture button and stuff. So I found an app. It's called Camera Vision. They recommend in the instructions that I found to install Air Server to do exactly what I'm doing, to use the camera as a wireless phone, as a wireless camera, to use the phone as a wireless camera, they recommend installing this program, this app on the phone called Shoot, I think. And they're like, oh, it's inexpensive, but it'll provide you with a clean screen. Well, I had been through this already, trying to find an app that provided a clean screen. The free one is called Camera Vision. So I already had that on there, so I didn't have to do step 2. Once I installed Air Server on the MacBook, I was able to run Camera Vision, and then so Camera Vision's running on the phone, and it's literally, ba-boom. It's wireless right now. I'm right here. It's actually in sync. It should be in sync. I synced them up earlier, just roughly, so it's pretty close to being in sync. Check that later, as long as I'm not dropping billions of frames right now. So that's kind of the saga with the iPhone, and because it's wireless, I can now plug it in to charge it. So it's solved that problem too. I can also pick it up. Now, it is up in the air on a mount, but I am in a little while going to go and I'm going to pick it up to help me show off some of the other and get you a sense of what the room looks like. I can actually pick it up and walk around with it. It's now a handheld camera. The other cool thing about Air Server is I can use multiple devices. So I got my iPad here. I can run that. I think they said you can run up to 6 or 7 devices or something like that. A bunch of them, more than I have, more than my computer can handle. I can, at the same time, capture the video from my iPad, anything that's on the iPad, anything that's on the iPhone, and I can have them come up in OBS here as a camera. Tried it, and my computer doesn't really like doing more than one at a time, so we're not going to do that. But it's nice to know that this is a really, really feasible way to get the video and the audio from the iDevices to the computer. So yeah, I wrote my history with DJing. Oh, that was my notes from the last podcast. Okay, so here's a bit of a walkthrough. I use a MacBook Pro 17-inch, late 2011, 2.4 gigahertz Intel Core i7 processor. It's got 16 gigs of RAM. Yay! I guess that's DDR3, 1333 megahertz, and it's got a 240 gigabyte solid state drive, which helps. It starts up in seconds. It has the Intel HD graphics 3000 with 512 megabytes, I guess, RAM or whatever. And I am running Mac OS 10.13. Yeah, I will stay in the Apple ecosystem, and I will get a new computer eventually, and then some of these problems will be left behind. I'm sure there'll be a whole host of new problems that I will be happy to solve. Some of these problems will be left behind. I know what's going on here. Adam fucked with my chair, and it's all low. There we go. But I believe when I get a new MacBook that I won't have this rendering problem anymore. It'll be all gone. And will I be able to use all the same cameras and stuff? I've learned well enough by now that probably the answer is no. I may have to sacrifice something. It's really hard. I use some Microsoft cameras and a bunch of different cameras. I have a whole list here, and I'm gonna read it off if anyone's interested, because that's what tonight is about. It's about gear. So yeah, I am stuck operating systems on both MacBooks because of either the hardware. Well, actually, I believe they're both at the latest they can be. So it's partly because of the hardware of the actual MacBook itself, but in the case of the DJ laptop, it's also because of the Serato hardware that I use, which wouldn't be compatible with anything later. So on this on the streaming laptop, the 2011 MacBook, it is on 10.13.6 High Sierra, and oh boy, is there. Yeah, the Logitech cameras will definitely work. Yep. I don't currently use any Logitech cameras, but I have heard that the image from an iPhone is very similar to the best Logitech streaming cameras, which is just an interesting fact, by the way. Yeah, it was. I had to upgrade to High Sierra, or at least Sierra, in order to upgrade OBS past version 25. I was back at El Capitan when I started streaming, and that is a whole other saga in itself, because it started with the AMD GPU failing shortly before I started streaming, and then I'm not going to tell that story, but it cost hundreds of dollars to bypass the chip. And then when I wanted to upgrade to High Sierra, the guys at the computer store said I couldn't, and I didn't believe them. And in the end, they were wrong. They wouldn't just give me the freaking link to download High Sierra or just give it to me, because they were like, no, we have to do that sort of thing. You won't be able to find it. And I did it. I upgraded and I did it, and it worked perfectly fine. Except High Sierra has issues. Maybe with this specific laptop, but just in general, it has issues, and I can't change it now. I did something at a certain point after I'd been streaming for a couple years, I guess, and then we moved here. So just almost a year ago when we moved here, I was setting up the new space, and I tried something on the MacBook. I can't even really remember what I was doing, but I reset the NVRAM, and that totally, the bypass that they did on the graphics card, it totally fucking screwed the whole thing up, and I had no graphics. I had no working screen anymore, so I had to send it back to the same store. The reason it's so expensive is because what they have to do is they have to open the thing up, obviously. They have to desolder the chip from the motherboard. They have to send it away to have it reprogrammed, and then they have to bring it back in, and they have to solder it back on. So they charge you $200, and rightly so, or $250 or something. Rightly so, like that labor is intensive, and there's no way I could do that myself. I might be able to open up the MacBook and like put a hard drive in it or something, but like there's no way I'm desoldering a chip off the motherboard. So that was a thing. So I'm just talking about the specs of this MacBook right here. Hi, Natasha. It's hot in here, baby. Can you open the window for me? Yeah. Natasha is here. And so, yeah, hi, Sierra. And it's got the optical drive was replaced with a 750 gigabyte, 7200 RPM rotational drive. It's not a solid state drive, but it's a great amount of additional storage. So it's about 1 terabyte of storage in total there. And the computer came like that. I bought it used for about $800, and it came sort of pimped out with the SSD at the time with a working AMD accelerated graphics chip. Natasha's struggling with the window right now. Just take those things out of there, and yeah, she's okay. She can open a window. She's done it before. So I put a bunch of crap to block out the windows in the daytime because I was playing with my projector. And so because of the, so more facts about this computer. The battery has been replaced. I have replaced the battery. Because the AMD GPU is bypassed, there is no brightness control. It has sleep issues. I like to say that. It's like sometimes, not all the time, if it goes to sleep, it does not come back from sleep. You have to hard restart it. And that can be shitty if you're in the middle of something. No brightness control. And there's other random issues is what I was going to currently connected devices to the 2011. What are the bunnies back? Okay, the bunnies are in the yard. I did a post earlier on Instagram and Facebook, but it didn't go on it didn't take on Facebook, and it was a video of these bunnies in my backyard, and they're so cute. They're wild bunnies, and they're just like they're rabbits, I guess I call them. They're so cute. They're awesome. Currently connected devices. Now, this has changed with our new setup, but I'm just going to read the list as it was before, and then I can tell you about the amendments after. Currently connected devices and most of these are cameras. They're all cameras on this list. Okay, iPhone 5S. New View HD conference camera. Microsoft LifeCam Cinema. Microsoft LifeCam Studio. And a cheap HDMI capture device. That is an HDMI to USB capture device. Now, that has changed recently because Adam came along and threw his Windows computer into the mix. And he's like, I want to do some graphics for you. And he sort of like was asking me for advice about how he might do that, if there was anything he needed to buy, and then if I could help him, with what software to use and to learn it. And so we basically did that. He bought a projector. He brought his Windows computer, which has a smashed screen, but you can hook up 2 external monitors to it. Oh, by the way, my streaming laptop, you can't hook an external monitor to it. So that's kind of frustrating, and I've learned to live without it because it has no Thunderbolt functionality, because the Thunderbolt is directly connected to the GPU, which is really sad because once you bypass the GPU, you have no Thunderbolt port on this computer anymore. No external monitor. With OBS, this is devastating because a lot of people will do like a display capture. I can't do that. But I got a lot of other video devices connected to it. So what we did when he brought in this other computer is we sort of made a decision. I made a decision about what we could connect to this computer that would be fun, what cameras we could connect to it that would be fun to play around with, so that he would have some cameras shots and I would still have some here, without disrupting my setup too much. And also which cameras I didn't mind losing from my setup. So right now, so I used to have like 5 different cameras I could go to. So right now it's just the iPhone. This is just from OBS here. We have our LifeCam Studio, which is sort of my talking cam. And then we have Cab Video. That's not it in the corner. Cab Video is basically the output from the other MacBook. So it's the second display from the other MacBook. So I can do a lot of different things. I know you're not seeing anything right now. I can do a lot of things with this, like Resolume and graphics. I'm just going to pop this in right now. So there's a program called, so this is my DJ computer that also has the capability to run, with only 4 gigs of RAM, to run Resolume Avenue in the background. And I have it hooked up to a MIDI controller, and I have all kinds of graphics programmed. And so so that comes in, that's the HDMI to USB device. So that comes in, and I can go to that. And then I have a Polypop screen. See, this one is a new device. This is something that we added. This is another separate HDMI to USB thing. Device, sorry, and that's another screen that we can go to. I'm just going to go over to Polypop and run something here. Okay, so that's my conference cam, which is a 360-degree camera, and that used to be, I used to be able to go to that as a scene on its own. It seems like I still can, but I'm actually going to instead of just going to this camera is not actually connected to this MacBook anymore. It's actually connected to this Windows computer down here and running through Polypop, and then the output is being sent to that. So I borrowed this camera and the camera that shoots across my turntables here that people might remember, and those two, plus another crappy one that I wasn't using, we connected to the Windows computer, and then I piped that in on one input. So they're now, I can't go to them individually from OBS, but I can go to that scene, and I can have these 2 cameras here, which we just have together in this scene. They can be separate, but they're just together. One is on top of my TV here, and the other one is the one that used to be connected that's across the turntables. And it's cool, as you can see this screen, we have HDMI splitters. So not only is this Resolume signal being sent to USB from HDMI to OBS here to the MacBook, but it's also being sent to my plasma screen, which is beside me, so I can see. What's neat about that is I can always see. Oops. See, I can turn this off here. Oh, that's another thing I can explain about how all this works. So even when if I were to turn off that Resolume feed, I can still see it on my screen over here, which is really, really fun, because not only does it look cool in the background, but it's also a monitor so that you can try something out before you bring it up on the screen. And as you can see up here on the wall, I'm actually projecting what comes out of Polypop. So that's the exact same idea. So the MacBook runs Resolume, which is split to the plasma screen and OBS. And the Windows computer runs Polypop, which is split to the projector and OBS. And then you can combine in OBS, you can combine those 2 things together. I don't have them in the same scene because they're kind of like, they don't really work that well together. And that's something that I could get into more of explaining. So yeah, oh, I got to turn that off. Hold on. Alrighty. So I was explaining all of that because I was sort of explaining that I had like 5 or so cameras connected to the MacBook before, but now I only have like the 3. And one of them is not really a camera, it's just a video feed from the DJ laptop. And in fact, and I've added another one of those HDMI to USB for the Windows computer, which I just kind of explained all of that. So that changed things a little bit. So here are the specs to my DJ laptop. It is a MacBook Pro 15-inch, mid-2009, 2.66 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo with 4 gigs of RAM. Count them, 4 gigs of RAM. And it runs Serato Scratch Live with little to no problems. And this Resolume Avenue at the same time doing graphics. And it rarely fails. Although it completely crashed on me on Saturday night. But it is really old. It's got the original hard drive. I'm about to say all of that. So, yeah, 4 gigs, DDR2, SD RAM. GMA 950. 64 megabytes. That's the graphics card that's doing Resolume while it runs, other things at the same time. It's miraculous. And it is, oh my God, no. I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's not a GMA 950 64 megabytes. Hold on. Anyone that knows anything about computers or graphics cards would be like, what? I read the wrong thing. Okay. So 4 gigs of RAM on the 2009. This was my first Apple computer, which I haven't owned that many since. I've had a couple of iPads and this wonderful broken 2011 MacBook. But the 2009 was my first experience with Apple. I literally remember opening the thing for the first time and being like, what the heck am I going to do with this? And now it has been the most amazing workhorse computer ever. Between this one and this one, but mostly with the old one, I have done so many DJ gigs with this thing. I've run so many theater shows off of it and made so much electronic music. And it's really been an amazing computer. And I'll be very sad when it goes, because even now it's working. It's doing wonderful things in this setup, and it's picking up the slack actually where the 2011 is falling short. I don't know what I will do when this laptop dies, because it's running my DJ program. So like that's almost the only essential thing that I need to do when live streaming. If I can't DJ with Serato, I mean, I'll just use records until I get another DJ computer. So, but the graphics card on that one is actually an NVIDIA whatever, GeForce 9600M GT, 256 megabytes. And it is stuck now on OS X 10.9.5 Mavericks. Mavericks. Probably upgrade HD. Yes, I could. That's a very good idea. That's the only thing that I would do to this computer. I'm wondering whether it's going to die before I get around to doing that. Okay, so on my list here, original hard drive. It has the original hard drive in it. I have most things backed up. I should probably look at that, because sometimes I just think it could just go at any moment. Original hard drive, putting an SSD in this thing, first of all, it wouldn't take 5 minutes to start up. It doesn't take 5 minutes, but it would take seconds to start up, and it would increase its performance a lot. And I'm actually always impressed with what this thing can do and not stutter like 4 gigs of RAM. I'm wondering even how that graphics card compares to the Intel one in the 2011. I'm wondering if maybe it's better. I mean, the two computers are not that far apart in age. So does the optical drive still work on the 2009? I don't know. Maybe not. The battery is dead. The battery did not swell. Now, the battery is replaced on my 2011 because it started swelling and almost busted up the whole case. So I had it replaced, which was great. Have you cloned the image? Yeah, I'm pretty prepared to reinstall from scratch. Also, I make sure that I keep a copy of, in this case, Mavericks, and in this case, well, I don't ever want to have to reinstall High Sierra. I'm afraid to do that because of what happened with the chip and everything, and accidentally resetting the NVRAM. But yeah, I could make a clone of the drive. I'll have to. I suppose I'd have to do that if I just wanted to clone it to an SSD. And so I will look into that. I do use Time Machine periodically on both my machines. And I believe that you can use Time Machine as well to copy stuff to a new drive, but who knows? So yeah, the battery is dead, but it's never swelled. Battery's dead in that, especially when it's doing stuff. It'll last for well, okay. If it's not doing anything and you unplug it, it'll last for a minute or two. But if it's running graphics and doing stuff, if you unplug it, it'll go within seconds. It'll turn off. But I've never replaced the battery because it never swelled, and I'm not gonna, because it's expensive to do that. The fans have been replaced on that one too, because they died. Fans have been replaced. Currently connected devices. Oh, I didn't fill that information in. But I could say I've got a hard drive with music. I've got a hard drive with movies and TV shows because I also run my media server off of that. And then there is the, well, wait a second. Well, there's the MIDI controllers, which I'm going to list off later anyway. There's like Dicers and a Denon controller, and there's the Serato card. There is a webcam attached to that, which is another camera we're going to look at because it's a 7-camera setup. And yeah, I didn't write down what the connected devices are, but who cares? Okay, I also, here's the funny thing. I also use a mid-2007 MacBook 13-inch. This is my mom's old computer, and I've just kept it around because, well, the one reason is that the optical drive still works. I could burn DVDs, and I could read DVDs off of it. And so it was, and watch DVDs. My kids want to watch the odd DVD. So it was useful for that. But the other day, a little while ago, I was like, I wonder if I could run Resolume, because I had an extra monitor sitting around here, which would be, why isn't my, this one in the back corner here. You can't really see it. I could put some stuff on it later, but I had this extra monitor sitting in the corner that wasn't doing anything, and I'm like, what if I displayed an image on that during the live stream? That would look cool. So I tried to install Resolume, which again is like a 15-year-old program, but still, this MacBook is not meant to do anything like that. And I installed Resolume on it, and lo and behold, it worked. I thought it wasn't going to work at first. It kept crashing, and then all of a sudden it just started working. And so I can pretty much make the same graphics that I'm doing on the 2009 for this 2007, and then just display them to their own monitor. So that's what I'm doing with that. And that's hilarious, because that's the one with 2.16 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo, 4 gigs RAM, and the GMA 950 64 megabyte. And that one is OS X 10.6.8 Snow Leopard, which was like my first, Snow Leopard was like my introduction to OS X. I remember finding the missing manual to Snow Leopard, because there was never a manual. So someone wrote a manual, and it was ridiculously long. No one could ever read the whole thing, but it's filled with all these things that Apple never tells you about the operating systems, all these cool tricks and stuff. And I remember reading that. And if there's a missing manual for any current Mac operating systems, I highly recommend it. Yeah. So what else? Okay, and then and I also have a that old MacBook, the 2007, has no battery at all. The optical drive works, and it's a currently connected devices, an EMU 0404 USB, which is a USB audio capture device. It's got mic inputs and stuff. And the reason I'm using that is because I can get these graphics in Resolume to like bounce to the music and stuff, but you have to input audio to do that properly. So I'm taking audio digitally from one of my sound cards and bouncing it through this other sound card that's connected to the USB to the old MacBook. And also it has that sound card has MIDI, like old conventional MIDI inputs. So I'm actually splitting. I use an APC40 Ableton controller to control Resolume on my main instance of Resolume on the DJ laptop, because Resolume has a billion different parameters that you can adjust. And it's nearly impossible to use it live with a trackpad or a mouse. Plus, I'm DJing on this computer, so I can't be looking at the program at the same time. It just is underneath the Serato. So the APC40 is a very large controller with lots of knobs and buttons. So I was able to map, and the wonderful thing about Resolume is you can MIDI map any of these parameters. So I'm able to map them all these parameters to this large controller. And then I'm also able to bounce the signal, the MIDI data that's coming in off that controller from the MacBook to one of its connected sound cards, and then out through an actual MIDI cable to this other old sound card that's connected to the old 2011 or 2007 MacBook. And that way I'm able to actually control the graphics of Resolume on both computers with the one controller. Now, it's a little bit complicated. I know it sounds. It also involves a program called MIDI Patch Bay, which the equivalent of this for Windows would be MIDI Yoke, as far as I know. And MIDI Patch Bay allows you to alter MIDI data as it passes through it. So it's really interesting because you can change notes, you can omit certain notes or CCs, and you can also bounce MIDI from one device to another. And I have a lot of different MIDI devices in here and computers and stuff, obviously. So that's like, yeah. Old iMac was a similar vintage. It worked for 13 years. Yeah. Well, neither the hard drives have not been. I don't know about this 2011 or this 2007. The hard drives might have been replaced on that. I don't know. It belonged to my mom. So I also use an iPad Air 4th generation. That's my baby right here, my newer one. And it's been really, really instrumental in being able to live stream. I think I got it maybe before I started streaming, or maybe I got it into streaming a little bit. I can't really remember exactly, but it's just been really amazing because I don't have to have other stuff going on my streaming laptop. Anything else that I need to do, even fixing stuff on Streamlabs or checking Twitch or Restream or go on Facebook or whatever, all of that stuff I can do on my iPad. So where it's actually capable of doing other things like being a camera or being a controller or like even generating graphics, like it's capable of all that stuff, but it's really, really good at the menial tasks and taking every single menial task away from my streaming laptop. Like right now, I see there's a notification on Facebook. It says, "Oh, people reacted to my Kids in the Hall post." That's great. So I also have an iPad Mini 2012, and it is actually hooked to my mic stand right here. I'll just lift it. The fancy clip that Natasha got me for it that I didn't use much until recently, because all I use this thing for now is actually I don't have it running right now. It's silly. It should be. I'm going to run it. There's an app called OBS Blade, and it's like a Stream Deck. It's a very simple type of Stream Deck app, and it's wonderful. It just shows you your scenes in OBS, and you can switch them. And I've just connected it right now, so from right here, I can just switch scenes, and it's just beautiful like that. You can also activate and deactivate all of your sources. You can also start and end your stream or recording and some other stuff that it does. But it's very basic, and it's super awesome. And also having this right here, having this iPad right here, even though I have the other much newer, better one close by. But having this one right here, if someone does send me messenger message or something, it pops up right here in front of me, and I can also, like, obviously I can like Google stuff and stuff. But this iPad is so old that a lot of things don't really work so great on it because they can't update themselves anymore, like Safari and YouTube and stuff. So, but this app works amazing, and that's my controller app there. So some software. So we've talked a lot about hardware, and I will probably talk more about hardware. I'm gonna try and not go on too long with the stream tonight. I really do appreciate you tuning in and listening. And I'm actually probably going to throw down a few records after. I'm going to do a little bit of a DJ set. I'm going to shut down the YouTube stream when I do that so I don't get any strikes or warnings, but I'll leave the other ones going. Software. Oh, I have more hardware to talk about here too. But software. Okay, I use OBS Studio. I've tried Streamlabs OBS a little bit, but I use OBS Studio. We now use Polypop Live. We're just starting to learn that. Recently, I found a program called Webcam Settings, Mac Terrace. This was actually, I paid for it. I think it was about $15 or something. I really don't like paying for software, but recently I've done it to solve some problems. And this was such a wonderful thing. My buddy gave me this old camera that I'm talking into right now, and you can't access, so any of these cameras, now this is a Microsoft camera, but this can be said of several other cameras that I have in here that aren't Microsoft cameras. When you plug them into an Apple computer, you can't access the settings of the camera. You can't change the contrast, the brightness, the white balance, none of that. Now you can do some of that in OBS, but it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on something that's already screwed up. It doesn't really work like that. If you connected any of these cameras to Windows, you just automatically get access to the settings. It's quite frustrating. So I was a little frustrated with this because I started using these cameras and my LED lighting looked terrible. Everything looked the wrong color. They were unusable. Other than the fact that they worked, I could get them to work, and the image was great. I mean, for what they are, they're mostly 1080p cameras. I'm running everything at 720p, by the way. But the image looked great, but which model is what camera? The one that I'm talking into is the Microsoft LifeCam Studio. So you cannot access. So I have LifeCam Studio, yeah, and I also have the Microsoft LifeCam Cinema, which is the older one, and those two and this UVC camera with the remote all looked terrible. I could not use them as front cams because all the LED light was flickering. You couldn't change the refresh rate or the whatever power line rate or whatever. You couldn't change the white balance. You couldn't change the exposure. Everything was oversaturated. Like for example, like the iPhone does really well with this live sign. I actually had to gel it so it looks a little bit more chilled out. But this live sign on any of the other cameras, still, even with this webcam settings, just looks like a white blob. So I found this program called Webcam Settings. I think it's by Mac Terrace, or it's also called Mac Terrace. I'm not totally sure. But it was inexpensive, less than $20 or less than $15, I think. And it was perfect because I had that exact amount left on my Apple account just at that moment. I don't buy a lot of apps, so I just happened to have that left, some pocket change left in there. And when I finally found it, it solved all the problems. It allowed me to use all these cameras. All you got to do is run it when you start your computer. You just got to run it, and then you can even quit it after that. What it does is it goes and it changes all the settings of the cameras to what you like, and then you can quit it. And so it doesn't even need to be running in the background, which is great. Yeah, highly recommended. I use Serato Scratch Live. No, I don't use Serato DJ. I missed the boat on Itch. I don't even know what that was. Serato Scratch Live, because I have an SL2. So yeah, that I think it's actually more the software that prevents me from that Serato software rather than the hardware that actually prevents me from upgrading this machine past Mavericks. But there you go. I use MIDI Patch Bay, which I talked about already. That allows me to basically what I'm using it for, and I can actually show you what it looks like. Let me switch to this scene here, and I can actually bring it over y'all. And so it's what I'm using it for is basically to make the lights, the LEDs on a bunch of my controllers do what I want them to do. And I could go into more detail about exactly what that means, but it's really long and boring, and I don't even really it's been so long. Oops. What did I just do there? I don't know. It's been so long since I set it up. I don't even really remember. I had to make a note for myself in the past so that when I looked at it in the future, I would remember exactly what those four or five patches were for and what they do and what they're for. So absolutely crucial, though. Could not use my dicers without it. And it bounces MIDI around. Yeah. Dice Tools is a program that someone wrote to hack the dicers. The dicers are controllers that fit on a 1200 turntable. I'm pointing to it right here. And actually, if I go to Resolume, if I go back to Resolume here, and I run my top cam. Oh, I see, because you can still see me up there in the corner. I usually don't have that camera running in this scene, but I thought I would leave it in there for today. So I'm just going to stop that graphic. And I've got two more cameras connected to this computer that run through Resolume. So in addition to spinning my name around and doing other cool graphics, I can also, have this camera. Come on, baby. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay, I can fix that. But I can have the built-in camera. Whee! So that's the built-in camera. And there is an effect on it right now. I could turn it off, but I don't really need to. So you can see how that live sign just looks like a big white blob. This is probably one of the lowest grade cameras in the room. It's 640 by 480. It's the built-in camera on a 2009 MacBook. But I can run it through Resolume and put all kinds of fun effects on it. So that's the front cam. And then there's another camera that is over top of the turntables. And of course, it is not working right now. I can't believe that. And I can't remember why. Because I was going to point the dicers out to you, and I didn't want to actually. I can fix this camera. Just give me a moment, and I'll show you, because it's nice to see all the camera angles. I'm just going to unplug it and plug it back in. This is what happened. That's what happened during the live stream on Saturday night, and I unplugged it and plugged it back in, and shortly after that, the whole computer froze and went down. So we're just giving that a little test to see if that happens again. This will just take a moment. It won't take very long to load up again here, and then I can show you my top cam, which is a very, very cheap cam. Here it comes. Come on, baby. Come on. Okay, well, there it is. Yay. Hi. So there's such a delay on this camera. Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, well, well, the computer's not frozen, but the camera seems to be frozen. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so near where my hand was waving there, you can see that there's a thing that looks like it has dice numbers on it, and it's kind of triangular. And they fit right in the corner of, it's a MIDI controller called a dicer, and it basically is pre-mapped to work with Serato to do a few things, but there's this wonderful hack that you can get for it that allows you to do better stuff with it. I can't even really remember. So I've mapped it to do everything I need to do with Serato so that I don't need to touch the trackpad or keyboard. I can scroll up and down, choose a track, load it. I can set a cue point, and I can do many other things that I don't even use them for. So that's hilarious that camera is not wanting to work right now. I mean, at least the computer's not frozen. So let's go back to here. So yeah, so the dice tools are for the dicer. I guess that was the point of that. And then, yeah, I use Resolume Avenue. That's the other piece of software that I use. And that's what we were looking at. That was just where the camera was frozen. And I can do all kinds of wonderful things with that. Let's just take a quick look here, I'll bring up the Resolume screen. Okay, so what we're doing here, okay, so if I were to look at the Resolume screen on its own, ignore me in the top corner here, but I'm there. Sorry, bear with me. I'm not near the controller, so I am actually doing this all with the trackpad. The controller is just a little bit out of my reach where I'm sitting here, because I don't sit here when I'm DJing. And we also have a separate video station set up for Adam that's a little bit even further out of my reach right now. So if I run right now, even this thing right here, Resolume is not outputting alpha channel. It's not outputting with transparency. It is not capable of doing that. There are other programs that are. But if you were to run those other programs out and into an HDMI to USB adapter, you probably wouldn't be able to run transparency through that anyway. I don't know that for a fact, but probably not. So luckily, OBS, this is what made this great. Because sure, I can look at graphics here. I can even turn on some other crazy stuff. Oh, it's really hard to do without the controller here, but let's see if we can. Come on. No? Oh, never mind. I was trying to put some more effects on that, but I'll step over to the controller later and show you what I mean. But anyway, if I were to overlay this over, right, we could just look at this and that would be cool. And of course I can call up the other cameras and everything. And we have this thing, the driving video. We got all kinds of stuff in here, but like some stuff we use more than others. And of course you can have the camera and I can put a billion effects on it, and that camera's not frozen. Hello. But what if I wanted to have these graphics over top of my other cameras in OBS here? Well, OBS has a wonderful function called a color key. That's what people use to stand in front of a green screen. But in this case, the color key is set to remove everything that's black, which works really well with an image like this. I guess you watched City TV. Yeah, that's where I got that from. Here, let me show you some of the effects for a second. Hold on. There we go. And I can change colors and everything, so you get the idea. So now I can overlay this over top of this. Now, how am I doing that? Because OBS is actually removing everything that's black. So it's a little taxing on the system. This is one of the things I've noticed is actually more taxing than I would have thought. And so I'm looking at this and trying to reduce stuff like this recently. So I won't be using any effects like this during my podcasts. And I'm going to try and consolidate things and try to get the computer to be better. But in the future, with a faster computer, this should be no problem to do this. But it's really super neat, especially with lettering like this, because it's so one color. Like there's not any fading in between like the black and the color. It's just like a solid, it's just like a straight line or whatever. I don't know a lot about graphics, making graphics and stuff, but my buddy made me these letters, and he actually made me a transparent PNG, and that's what I'm using, and that's how I'm able to overlay it in Resolume. I'm able to overlay it over top of the camera in Resolume because it is a transparent image. But once I output that from Resolume, it's no longer transparent. It has a black background. So to prove that here, if I go in OBS to this video input of the spinning letters, and I turn off the color key filter, then we lose the other camera because the black shows up. So it's cool. What's really neat about that is you can actually then start playing with that as an effect. So this driving video that I played before, if we run that, it now looks like this because all the black is being removed. So it's a really neat effect. If you run the cameras, you can also still see the room behind the camera that's happening. So you can see You can see me. You can see the room behind the camera. You get the idea. It's removing the black, and it's super awesome and useful, and yeah. So that's Resolume Avenue in conjunction with OBS's ability to remove all the black. And we're using Polypop in exactly the same way. I would like to be able to use Siphon or NDI to run these graphics to the other computers. I mean, ideally, I'd love to do everything just on one computer, but it is kind of useful to do it on multiple machines, split up the tasks a little bit. But getting video from one machine to the other is difficult because, yes, you can just get an HDMI to USB adapter, but then you can't send transparency, as far as I know anyway. And using NDI, you definitely can send transparency. So I'm looking into other ways to do that in the future. Maybe when I have more processing power. So that was it for software. Unless there was anything new that I missed, that was pretty much it. And Air server. Yeah, Air server. That's what I'm talking about. Air server. Hardware. Back to hardware because I have a list of hardware. I'm just reading up my notes here because it helps me to get all the things that I wanted to say said. So I'll read off of what I have here, and then I'll just interject with whatever I think is clever. I don't know. If anyone has any questions, just go ahead in the chat. I know Von Fackenheim is participating and asking questions, and I appreciate that. Hardware. So audio interfaces. I have a Roland UA101. That is a 10 in, 10 out USB to made by Roland. And it's just wonderful. Unfortunately, is not supported by High Sierra, and I can't use it with my new laptop. So I still use it with the old one. What's wonderful is it's like having a really capable mixer as well. It works even in standalone. What's really nice about this one is it has a control panel that you can call up on the screen where you can route any input to any output, and you can monitor things and change levels and stuff. And if you then unplug it from the computer, it retains all of those settings. So it's super useful in that way. So I've used it in many different ways over the years, done a lot of sessions. It's just really great to have around here because anything that I want to do, however complex it is, I can usually figure it out with this device. Unfortunately, it doesn't connect to the new computer, but that doesn't stop me from routing audio into it to and from the new computer. The new computer has a lot of issues with audio devices and USB it not getting along. And I don't even think it's like a bandwidth thing necessarily. It just like there's so many I've basically stopped trying to connect professional audio devices to it because it just does not. I kind of have to have my cameras. Like, yeah, I don't have to have all the cameras, but it's just such a pain in the ass. You find a camera that works that you like, and then you find out that it won't cooperate with your audio device. And like I was saying before, I was very limited by USB buses on this thing. I said it had 2 USB buses, so things that didn't get along, you could put them on different buses. But the problem with that is I eventually realized that my UVC camera, the one that pans around the room, would only work on a separate bus, and it wouldn't work through a hub. So that prevented me from putting a hub on that bus. And then I had to plug the iPhone into the other bus without using a hub. That left me with one port on the same bus as the iPhone that I could attach a hub to. So I had to connect everything else to that hub and just hope that it all worked together. And it didn't. So I had to sacrifice cameras, and that's how I ended up putting this camera above the turntables and connecting it to Resolume, that's the only thing that's not working for me to show you guys today, but who cares? And then Adam came along and changed the setup, and we ended up removing 2 more cameras from the setup, which has taken a little bit of stress off of this computer and made it possible for me to possibly connect my other audio device back to it now, but I haven't quite taken that plunge yet. But The UA101 was one of the best audio devices I'd ever used in my life. It was so good. I don't know about the mic preamps. They're probably not the greatest preamps. They're probably fairly cheap. I mean, they're okay, but they're on the cheap side, right? I mean, the whole thing was probably like $600, so it's not that cheap. But yeah, you're not really paying for quality preamps. You're paying for versatility and a lot of ins and outs, which it has. I also now use a Tascam 1608, which is a newer interface, which does work with the new computer, but did not get along with webcams. And so I ended up, I have it connected to I have both of these sound cards connected to the old MacBook because then I can change the settings on the Tascam. I would love it if the Tascam would work like the Roland in that you could make the settings and then disconnect it from the computer, because they would just keep the settings and you could, but it doesn't. As soon as you disconnect the computer, it goes into this automatic standalone mode, which mirrors every input to every output, which could be useful if that's how I wanted to use it, but it's totally not. So I have to have it connected to the old laptop. So again, the old laptop is saving the day because it's running both sound cards, telling them what to do, and that way I can bounce audio through them in various different ways. That gets way too complicated around here. You'd think, oh, he just DJs. Like, how can it be that complicated? I don't know. Well, I am doing capturing the Zoom call and making it look and sound really good in my podcast, so that gets a little bit complicated, but there is a lot of audio flying around this room in different ways. I'm not even sure sometimes why it's so complicated, but it is. And then I use the EMU 0404. I was already talking about that. That's another USB, a really old USB audio interface that may or may not have problems, but I use that to get audio into the 2011 MacBook to bounce the images on the screen, and I use that also to get MIDI to control Resolume also for the imagery. I also use an M Audio Fast Track, which is the cheapest, most basic audio interface you could ever imagine. And I'm using that in an emergency right now. You're actually, oh no, right now you're not hearing my mic through that, but you could, because in my regular setup, my DJ setup, my mic goes through there. And that's because the darn Tascam won't connect to the 2011 MacBook. So but what's great about the Tascam is it has DSP processing on so you can process the mics before they get to, so I process my mic, but I also process, if I'm having a Zoom call, I will also process that person's audio signal. So it sounds a little bit compressed like mine. And you can process them with the hardware. Well, it's actually software that's on that hardware. Before it gets to the computer, this takes another task off of OBS. And so I like to run the mic through that first. And then in order to get the signal to my... Why did the heat just come on? Oh my God, no, I have to go turn that off, and I'm gonna get a beer. So just hold on one sec. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, to get the audio to the MacBook without running it through the same line as my DJ mixer, which is actually what I'm doing right now. Right now the mic is going through the DJ mixer, so it's a little bit more simplified that way. It's still going through the Tascam, being processed, and then it's going through the DJ mixer, so it's a little bit more simplified. That's to do with not having to flip scenes in OBS, and it's also nice to have two different ways to get the mic in case one of them goes wrong. But my main way to use the mic is to actually change scenes in OBS. I just like to do it that way. I like to have a scene. I have a duplicate of every scene, one with the mic on and one with the mic off. It's easier for me to remember when the mic is on or off. I can also access the mic from my DJ mixer if I want to, is how I'm talking through it right now. But yeah, in order to get a separate channel or a separate device to get this microphone into the computer without, having it coming in on a separate device than where the turntables are coming in, I had to bust out this old Fast Track, and it worked. So it was, interconnect is the hardest technology part about broadcasting. I agree. I don't know why my camera flickers like that. It's weird. I gotta fix that. Cheers. I don't know why the heat came on in here. I've turned it down all the way, and I'm hoping it stops. It's not that loud for the microphone. You probably can't hear it at all. It's a little distracting for me, and I have no idea. The windows are open wide, so I just had the thermostat up too high. Also, there's something that's bothering me right now. It's making me want to smoke weed too, but I don't really smoke weed during my podcast because it gets really boring. My neighbors are just like smoking cigarettes, and I don't know which neighbors. It doesn't matter who it is, but like I quit smoking cigarettes after 25 years, and I hate that my garage is filling up with the smell of cigarettes right now because it's making me crazy. It's all I can smell, and I wish I could have the windows open without this smell wafting in here, and it's really bothering me. Blah. Like a little bit makes me want to smoke cigarettes, but I'm not going to do that because I'm totally over that, and I never, ever want to be a slave to nicotine again. But it makes me want to smoke weed, which I'm going to do after 17 degrees. Yeah, it's like it's hot enough here. It's hot. The windows are wide open, and I got too many computers going. And so what else can we talk about? Okay, turntables, mixer. Obviously, I have Technics 1200s Mark IIs. Yeah, I'm not. There's no way I'm smoking tobacco. No, thank you. I'm sorry. I have my vice. It's weed. I smoke it every day. I'm not shy about that. I try not to smoke on Thursdays because I try to be sharp. I smoked a little. I knew because I was changing my podcast tonight, I was not doing the same format as I originally planned. I did smoke a joint earlier, way earlier today, but when I usually, like if I'm DJing, I'll smoke a joint right before I start. I don't do that when I'm podcasting because I just can't, I get a little self-conscious. Mostly I just get confused and I forget everything that I want to talk about. Even smoking it earlier in the day can definitely cause that. So I apologize if I'm running on a little bit or anything like that, but I am making an effort. Oh God, this smell is killing me right now. And I use an Allen & Heath Zone 23 mixer. That's a very basic DJ mixer. It's very, very, it's very basic. Can we get a shot of that? No? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's a 2-channel mixer with actually has 4 inputs, two inputs per channel. They each share a channel. I never use the other. I just use 2 inputs. And my turntables are connected to that through an SL2 Serato box. So that preamps them and changes them to a line level, and then they just connect through that. And, I can stop and talk, before I move on to the rest of the gear list, I can stop and talk about why do I use timecode vinyls for Serato as opposed to using controllers or CDJs, which are almost the same thing these days, controllers and CDJs. They got more and more similar. For me, it's about having... Okay, so my ideal setup... So here's the thing. I don't really think timecode vinyls are really the best way to play digital. I find it a little bit unsteady. How to define that is to say... So mixing with controllers is totally steady. It's not about reading the BPMs necessarily, but once you set the tracks to the same BPM, if those tracks are steady themselves, they're not going to drift away from each other. With real vinyl, you can get some drift sometimes. But if you're dealing with 2 records that are very steady, each one is steady, it's not going to drift that much, especially if there's nothing wrong with your turntables. Now, these turntables are very old and used, so sometimes I think maybe they're a little bit loose. But also, the mechanical stuff that has to happen to translate a time code, to tell the program what to do and then play back the music in real time, I always feel like the wow and flutter of the turntable is causing a little bit of trouble with that. So, for example, again, if you took two records that were really steady and you played them and you mixed them, and they stayed locked with each other very well when you beat matched them. If you took those same two tracks that were steady and digitized them or found them digital, even if you recorded those records straight to the computer, and then you played them back but controlling them with timecode records, the mix would not be as tight. It would drift a little bit more. Now, this is just my theory from using real records and from using timecode vinyls. I've had very little experience with CDJs, a little bit, and probably less experience with controllers. Although I do have I have a Denon controller here. It's like a single of a pair of what would be a pair. Oh, when is the heat going to go off? This is ridiculous. So my ideal setup would probably be two really good CDJs or controllers and two turntables, because I love to play vinyl. I don't want to stop playing vinyl. Using timecode vinyl is the easiest way to play vinyl and digital at the same time, to be able to transition back and forth, and whether I want to play a track off the computer or whether I want to play a record, using the same piece of equipment to play both things, to me, is the easiest way to do it. It's funny because these desks were here when I moved in. The structure was built when I moved in here, which is totally awesome in this garage. But the desk is only long enough to accommodate two turntables and a mixer. Well, there is a lighting controller on the end, and then there's another DJ controller here. So maybe I might be able to fit a couple of smaller controllers in here. But until I can afford that, or until I find exactly the right type of CDJs or controllers that I like, I will suffer with the timecode vinyls. They're it's kind of old technology right now. I remember when Final Scratch came out. That was like the precursor to Serato. And it was like the biggest thing. And I mean, the technology has been taken to the next level now. They have this thing called phase, which is just a little stick that you place. You don't even need the needle. You take the needle off the record, you place the stick on an actual turntable. There, the heat went off. And then it tracks the movement of the, yeah. Well, see, I don't see it. I mean, I see some people. I see, half the DJs I watch on Twitch are still playing vinyl. Maybe not half of them, but some of them, which I think is amazing. And I'm doing the same thing. But I like to look at different people's setups and see, oh, that guy just plays vinyl. That guy has turntables. A lot of times I see people have turntables beside controllers or CDJs, which I think is great. In my case, I just decided to stick with the timecode vinyls because I don't have to buy anything else. It works. My DJ software is really, really old too, so it kind of like matches with that. And but I do feel like I suffer a lot because I'm good at beat matching and everything, but my mixes are drifting, and it's not because I don't know what I'm doing. It's because literally the timecode vinyls are probably the most unsteady way to play digital music. I think that's probably true. So what else was I saying? Oh yeah, phase. Yeah, you just stick it on there, and it's just a little stick, and it just tracks the movement of the turntable. In fact, you can hold it. I think I saw a demo of it by DJ Jazzy Jeff or someone, and someone was holding it and actually like spinning around in a circle themselves, and the music was playing kind of like roughly, but oh yeah. Yeah. Like radio stations, they have no reason to play vinyl anymore, for sure. Not for a very long time. Maybe some of them have like vinyl days or something, but yeah, it's just such a large format. It's just so big and heavy. To have a lot of music, you have to have like an entire room full of stuff, and it's I know, yeah, no CDs. CDs went obsolete, even worse than vinyl, which I'm not surprised. I always found them to be kind of a unattractive media, I guess. vinyl has made a resurgence. It never actually went away. It has made a resurgence, but it never really went away. I rode this sort of second wave of when vinyl was so important. And what I'm talking about is like the rave scene. Now, I got in the rave scene late in the game, but I'm talking about the whole thing from the early rave scene to the end of it, pretty much in my city anyway. Vinyl was such an important part of it. Yes, CDs became huge, and then eventually digital, and CDs became huge in like, you know, in the late rave scene in like the early 2000s. Like, they were very, very useful because you could put a lot of music on it, and you could make different compilations like easily and everything, which was much better than vinyl. But I just remember, like, you know, vinyl would have been a huge thing when it was the only format, like in the 60s, or like it wasn't the only format, but it was the biggest format, you know, in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s, right? It was still huge, right? 80s, CDs come along, so then it starts to die out. But at the same time, what started to happen is that whole thing where people were mixing disco and then house music was invented. That started in the late 70s, continued through the 80s and into the 90s. And then people were using vinyl and turntables like they had never been used before. And that continued, and then electronic music was born. And that's how you mixed these tracks. You mixed them, like the CD technology for a while didn't exist. It wasn't good enough to be able to manipulate the music on the fly and play it and mix it. And so that's the part I remember, is when vinyl was huge in like the 90s, in the late 90s. It's like we already had all this digital technology, but vinyl was huge. It's what all the DJs used at raves, and there was like turntables everywhere, and so that's what I remember. And so yeah, that was sort of explaining. That's part of what I wanted to explain about why I still use timecode vinyls. Okay, more gear. I'm speaking right now into an Audio-Technica AT2020 microphone, which is just a microphone that belonged to my mom. She didn't use it very much, and so she gave it to me. I've got a lot of microphones. I've got several condenser microphones and a lot of dynamic microphones. I've got a whole case full of them over there. I got a lot of microphone stands and cables. I used to work as a sound guy a lot, and I also had my own band and did recordings and stuff, so I kept accumulating gear, and now I really don't have much use for all these microphones. Maybe my kids and I want to start a band in the garage here. They have a drum set. It's going to be totally awesome, and so when they do, I've got lots of mic stands and mics, but for my podcast, I love this. I like the mount and how it fits on this bendy arm that I have here, and I love that I have it on a straight stand. I don't have one of these stupid arms that every other podcaster and DJ has. I don't like them. I feel like even though it swings out of the way, I feel like it would always be in my way. I like this because I can sort of pick it up. It's very heavy, but I can pick it up, put it where I want it, and I can bend this thing for if I'm standing or sitting. I love it. And this microphone sounds great, and it looks good because it kind of looks different. Yorkville YSM6 monitors. That's 6-inch woofers. I'm looking at one and touching it right here. My monitors. I use a pair of SRH 840 headphones for DJing. Those are made by Shure. And I also have a lovely classic pair of AKG K240DF phones that I use when I'm podcasting to hear my participants. And I also just use both those headphones for just general stuff. And MIDI controllers. So I have and I use the Novation Dicers, which I talked about already, the Denon DNSC 2000. This is a controller that I bought when I first used Virtual DJ. I used Virtual DJ just with, I had some other controllers, and then I bought this, and it's a single controller, but it's a dual deck controller. Here, I'll just unplug it and hold it up here, because my above turntable cam is not working. Oh, I forgot it's stuck to the desk. Oh, that's going to bug me later. So this is the controller here. And it's a dual deck, so it switches from one deck to the other. It's made, it's optimized for virtual DJ. So I used to use virtual DJ. I used that controller. And then when I realized that you could use Serato time codes with virtual DJ, I bought a couple of time code records and I started using my turntables with virtual DJ. Eventually, I changed to Serato and continued to use the same time codes. And I still use this Denon controller if I want to play music videos off Virtual DJ, although I can use my time codes for that too. But like, I still use it once in a while, but not very much. The APC40, right? I'm mentioning it now. I have other controllers, other MIDI controllers here that I'm not going to mention because they're not actually part of my, even there's one sitting right in front of me on the desk, but they're not really part of my live streaming setup. But the APC40, again, totally meant for Ableton Live. And I guess I don't really use it that much for Ableton Live, but it's been amazing to run my Resolume graphics because it's got so many buttons and knobs on it. I'm going to try and stop this at 11 o'clock and maybe play some music for a bit. And I have an Elation SDC12 DMX controller. So when I moved here, my buddy offered me these lights. And one of them is here. One of them is over there. It doesn't look like much. It looks like a white blob. But they are RGB, red, green, blue, LED par cans. They're stage lights, and they're very basic. They do 3 colors, and then they do some effects scrolling through the colors, and they flicker and stuff. But to get them to do any of that, you need a controller. So I didn't really want to buy a controller per se, but I went to a Greenback's pawn shop when we moved here, and I found this controller is literally, so I have 2 of these lights. They function on 6 channels. So it's literally a 2 times 6 channel controller. So it's exactly what I needed for these. It has 6 channels, but you can switch it from one bank to another. So you can have, 1 through 6 and then 7 through 12. So I have one light in the corner over here and the other one up there, and I'm able to control them with this DMX controller, which is totally great. It's totally awesome. So that's all the gear. So cameras, I listed most of them. iPhone, the conference cam, the life cams. I already talked about that. I have a cheap 1080p USB camera. This is a $50 camera or so that I got at the thrift shop for $2. And it's being finicky today, but it is the overhead shot of my turntables. And there's something going on about that. I'm actually going to look into that because it might be the reason why the computer crashed the other night. Because it's been a little bit sketchy since I connected this camera. So I might look into if there's anything that I can do to fix that. Or maybe just take this camera and connect it to the Windows computer and run it through Polypop. Built-in iSight 640 to 480, cheap HDMI video capture, and a monoprice HDMI amplifier splitter. Yeah, I was talking about that. So that's everything on my gear list there. Now let's have a quick look at Polypop before we go. Actually, here's what I'm going to do, because this was my plan. So for the last 15 minutes, we're going to look at Polypop really quick, but also I'm going to show you the whole room, and I'm going to get down my iPhone, and it's going to be really cool because I'm actually going to speak through it. So it's too bad nobody else tuned in, but here, we'll just go to the iPhone again, and you can still hear me. But I'm going to I'll just leave the mic on. Hold on a sec. I'm going over here. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm up at the iPhone now, and I've activated the microphone. And you should be able to hear me. I'll try to... It's not put my hand in front of it. Bring it down. It's being a little bit laggy and jaggy. I don't know why it should look laggy on the actual thing. Can you hear me? No? Oh. Okay. Sorry, I was talking through this camera, expecting that you could hear something. Now can you hear it? Oh,
Now
there
can
it
you
is.
hear it? Oh, there
Hold
it
on.
is. Hold on.
Amazing. So I can actually talk through this iPhone, and it goes to the stream. This is all happening wirelessly. This is like my dream come true, and it's being very sketchy. It looks really frame lossy on the iPhone, but it actually looks okay on OBS. So let's go through. Oh, it's really hard to look at on here because here's my messy workbench. Okay, that's the desk there. This is the nice couch for chilling. I have equipment and gear over here. Let's shine the light on it if you need to find something. There's the new projector. The walls were already painted white. So, oh my gosh, it looks so much smoother on the screen. I can see over there. It's so jaggy on this. I'm holding this camera. So here is the Polypop setup here. This is the APC40 controller. I know you can't really see it extremely well. Maybe I can just shine a light on it here. There we go. And this dope ass yellow keyboard that I found at the thrift shop the other day. And we have mouse and keyboard here because the actual laptop is down over here. Here she is in all of her glory. She is not looking like anything. Here's the 2007 MacBook running Resolume. And what else can I show you here? There's the turntables and the dicers, right? Here's the overhead cam that's giving me crap right now. It's on a mic stand and it's just clamped to the desk. I used to have a different one clamped on this side, but I changed sides. Yeah, and so here's Polypop. There's some different scenes here, and if I run this scene, that's my room cam. Hi. And that is being projected up on the wall. There. Here, let me just, sorry. Some different scenes that Adam made here with my name on it. You can see it up on the wall. You can also just see it right here. And of course, I can pipe all this in to OBS when I wish to. So we just made a bunch of crazy crap on there, and then yeah, projected up on the wall. It's totally awesome. But yeah, hopefully seeing this with this camera gives you a little bit of a better perspective on the space that I'm working in here, because I know that we've only ever seen it from certain angles. So I've always wanted to do this, and I did have a wireless. I did try this before with my Android phone and wirelessly, but it was just a disaster. But this seems to be working okay. I mean, it looks totally crap from my perspective in the phone, but it seems to look fine. Let's just go outside, see if we can go outside, see if the bunnies are still there. Let's look for the bunnies. Bunnies. Yep, there's one. I'm not sure if you can still hear me or if the camera's going to go this far, but there's two bunnies. Here, watch this. Bunny? Cool. All right, so there's bunnies. Turn the light on in here. So this is the room. I'm assuming this camera's still working okay because it looks really bad from what I'm looking at the camera. But yeah, so all this structure was built. I mean, I think they used this was shelving, and I believe they used this just, it was like a workbench, right? And I think they like fixed their boat or something in here. So it kind of goes in an L shape, sort of. Maybe it's not an L shape, but it comes out like this, and then it goes over there, and then there's a bottom shelf to it. And then there's this. And I mean, it's so super strong that I was able to put 1 billion records on top of it. So that's cool. So I spend a lot of time in here making everything right, cabling everything. I mean, it's crazy. You get to see, like, this is really behind the scenes. A bit shaky. The bench looks solid. It is totally solid. Did you see the bunnies outside? I'm trying to keep the camera steady. It's super shaky on here. So underneath here, I just put a shelf, and I have like everything. Like, there's so much cable under here. There's also a shit ton of cable on top of the desk. So that's how you have to understand, like if there wasn't so much cable underneath, there would be like some people would think this is ridiculous. Like, look behind the computer. Okay. You may think that's ridiculous. It's all very well organized. Yeah, I know the rabbits are too hard to see in the dark. But then if you go under here, it's just crazy. Like, there's just cables everywhere and records. But I'm trying not to make you too seasick. I really wanted to do this with this camera so that everyone, even people watching this after the fact, can just get a sense of like what this place is like, what it's like to walk around, what it's like to just maybe sit here and watch a movie. I'm gonna watch a movie on the big screen later on. Yeah, I'm gonna go back over here, and I'm gonna put this camera back. I don't know why she's jagging so much on the camera. It looks fine on OBS. I'm gonna put her back up here. This is her mount right here. I built this. It's attached to the ceiling. Just comes underneath the garage door opener so that the garage door doesn't run into it. I'm going to put this back here. I'm going to turn off the mic so it doesn't interfere with anything. And then I will just catch up with you over there in 1 second. All right, I'm back. So we'll just have a really quick look at Polypop, and then I think we're going to call it a night. It's been really fun. I'm glad somebody else tuned in during the handheld part. I really wanted to do that. It was cool. Who are you? Identify yourself. If there's anyone else here, let me know. I did most of what I wanted to do. Some things worked tonight, some things didn't. My overhead cam is giving me crap. It was hard to show that part because of it. But yeah, so here's Polypop over my conference cam, which we can always zoom in, and like go around the room and stuff. You can see the image projecting on the wall. This is all new. This is all new stuff. It's actually a new program, but all of this extra frou and frill that you're seeing, we just built this last weekend, and like it's just crazy fun. Like, it's up on the wall, and it's on the screen, and it's over there, it's over here, it's on 10 different computers screens, and it's amazing. And thank you very much to Adam for buying some shit, but also being interested in enough to learn how to use it with me. And like I said, the software is open source, so it's totally free. But same deal with how I am superimposing Resolume graphics over some of my cameras. I can also superimpose the Polypop over it. So if I go to a Polypop scene that does not have a camera, but superimpose it over one of my other camera shot. Who's that? BodyBuzz420. Why do I recognize that that username? It says first time chat. Well, congratulations for the first time chat. I recognize your username. Do I know you? Anyway, welcome. Hi. But if I go to a scene, so right now we're seeing a bunch of stuff. Let me just try to find a. Right. If I go to even shit. I'm going to say scene 3 is the closest thing to what I'm talking about. Uh, so scene 3 on its own would look like this, right? And there's a lot of black in the middle there. Now, I think he had it before. I think there was maybe less stuff going on before, but this still works for demonstration purposes. So this is just the direct feed from Polypop. The two cameras that you're seeing are connected to that Windows computer that is running Polypop, and all the graphics are being... So everything's happening in that one program on one computer, and then it's being captured onto the other computer in a scene. But if I run this over top of a scene with an already existing camera on the other laptop and remove the black from it, what you get is the same thing. You can still see the two cameras, this other small camera squares in each corner, but everything that was black is now my main camera underneath. So we did a lot of that combining, removing the black from Resolume and from Polypop, and making things look really cool and groovy. And sometimes you can just like we would just do this shot and not have either of the graphics being piped in, but just still have them on the projector. Let me just find something else here. Yeah, like that. And then you can really see that up on the wall, especially if you kill some of the other lights. If I turn that off, even this live sign, I'm thinking about maybe moving it because it's causing a lot of spill on the projector. Turn that off, and you can see the projector wall much more clearly. Now, why did we choose to project on that wall? Well, it's terribly convenient to put the projector there, and that is over there. And also, there's more space on that wall, and it's more of a great place to watch movies from the couch, too. So we just made a decision. I think when we did our Saturday night test of this, it's Darren. Hi, Darren. Like Darren Fuller? Sorry, I don't mean to give your entire name. You don't have to answer that. Hit me up on Facebook. I recognized your I don't know any other Darrens, I guess. Or maybe I do, and I'm embarrassing myself because I'm not remembering the other Darrens. But yeah, I think I angled the projector. We didn't even have it set up really like straight. It was kind of like wonky. It was sitting on top of the ladder. If you go watch last week's set, it was sitting on top of the ladder. I hadn't mounted it yet because we literally like got it delivered that day with everything else, and we were trying to figure it out. So I actually had it spilling onto the back wall a little bit, partially too, and I really like that effect, except when I want to watch a movie with it later. I don't want to have to like turn it. Actually, it's pretty easy to just turn it over here. I'll show you what that looks like right now. That's basically it. But you can't even, I don't know. It's weird because you see me, too, walking around like in the other camera angles that are being projected on the screen. And again, if we want to see what that looks like, we can just go to that scene. And that's the scene. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Adam just made some stuff up. And yeah. So, I mean, that's Polypop. And I was happy to show you the handheld stuff. Okay, hold on. It's getting crazy because it's like, woo, too much. There we go. All gone. I love that transition too that he made. It melts everything away. I loved that I was able to take my iPhone camera off of its mount and walk around the room with it now, because it is now a wireless camera. All thanks to Air Server, $25 well spent. And yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up now. This was a pretty good. I mean, I didn't plan this too much, except I think making that list of equipment and software. That's what I did before the episode 2, where I was gonna do this. That really helped me to work through this because it gave me just a list of things to list off, and then it would remind me to like talk about certain things. I touched on a lot of stuff that I do here and how I do it. I probably didn't explain everything. But again, if anyone is curious about anything and they want to ask me, you can always ask me questions. I'm always down to explain about stuff like this. And yeah, so thanks, guys, and don't forget to follow me on Twitch and spam those emotes. Let's get those emotes going because Polypop still has that or not. Where's the emotes? Yeah, spam those emotes. I just did that. Not somebody else. They're even up on the screen. It's amazing. Let's see that again. And I'm gonna change scenes and have them come up on my wall here so you can see. Maybe some of this. Okay, boom, and then like this. They're on the wall. It's amazing. Things are going weird now. I don't know what's happening. Okay, guys. Right. Okay, so I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay, and I'm going to play some music. I'm probably going to smoke a doob. And so I hope everything works properly as I try to play music here. I guess my top cam is not working. I don't know. I'm just going to play some tunes and whatever. So I'm going to shut down the YouTube stream right now.